Hunters are some of the most feared operatives in all of the division. Today we channel that power and become the hunter. Dark Winter, a hunter's fury, close range high RPM momentum that builds with every kill. It's built for heroic missions in open world, solo and group. Now let's get into it. What's good everyone, Ragnas here and welcome to my channel where I do the math so you don't have to. Deep dives on build theory, gear optimization, and the stuff that actually matters because remember when you're built different, you hit different. Now let's get it going. Now before we get into it, I want to shout out my dog It's Marcel who requested this build, and I want to show you guys something. We're going to start off with a word, Syzygy. It's the astronomical term for the perfect alignment of celestial bodies. It's since been broadened a bit to often be used to describe a series of things or events that are in perfect alignment. So why do we care at all? For those of you that don't know, the Dark Winter is a PvP exclusive weapon. When I got the request, I thought I'd end up having to wait for targeted SMGs in the DZ or to get a lucky pull from a named cache. The very next week after I committed to making this build, Dark Winter shows up at the countdown vendor. Now if that's not everything lined up perfectly, I don't know what is. On the subject of community, I want to take a moment to thank everyone who's tuned in and showed support. Thank you for the subs, likes, and comments. It really means a lot. I do my best to respond to every comment in a timely manner as I do enjoy interacting with you all. Now let's talk about Dark Winter. The Dark Winter is the named vector SMG with the perfect killer talent. After a kill with a critical hit, you get a massive crit damage spike plus 90% crit hit damage. That's not a small bonus. That's the weapon telling you exactly how it wants to be played. Get close, crit, kill, and chain. The Vector already has very high RPM and a strong close range burst. The Dark Winter takes that platform and rewards the aggressive playstyle with a talent that snowballs as the room collapses. The third attribute we want is damage to targets out of cover. It sits in its own separate multiplicative bracket and multiplies off everything else that we've already stacked. Most enemies in this game, as you know, are out of cover, so it essentially is always active. Now, why do we go with Hunter's Fury? Hunter's Fury is basically designed for this weapon in this playstyle. 2 pieces gives SMG damage, 3 pieces gives armor on kill as well as health on kill, and the 4 piece gives amplified damage within 15 meters and a disorient on kill. That is the Dark Winter loop in its set form. Get close, kill fast, stay alive, and use the disorient to safely chain into the next target. Every kill makes the next kill easier. This is not a sit back and play it safe setup. This is a momentum build. Now why Memento? The Memento backpack gives us extra cores, an additional blue and yellow core on top of our red core. We're still running all red on our actual gear pieces, so the damage foundation stays intact. But Memento also gives us 2 separate trophy systems. A short-term trophy that rewards aggressive close-range play with its immediate bonuses, and a long-term trophy that builds up over the mission, giving us weapon damage, armor regen, and skill efficiency. Both of those systems reward exactly what Hunter Fury wants us to do anyways. We're already getting close, we're already chaining kills, the Memento just stacks value on top of that naturally. Now, because we're running 4-piece Hunter's Fury and Memento, we only have one true flex spot on the build, and for us we're going to use the chest. So the chest choice matters a lot. Now, here are some other chest options that I considered. So because Hunter's Fury and Memento take up 5 of our 6 gear slots, the chest is really the only decision that we have to make for this build. But it is a meaningful one. Not just for damage, but actually for the playstyle as well. So we're going to look at the chest options that I considered while I was building. First off, we're going to start with the Unit Alloys chest with Perfect Obliterate. Perfect Obliterate is going to give you up to 24% total weapon damage, as well as 5% rate of fire on top of that. So this is, spoiler, what I end up running. And this is the peak damage per second version, and it's the one that we're going to confirm at the range. The second option that we have here is going to be the Sokolov with a regular Obliterate talent. And this is the one that gives you the 10% SMG damage, which is cool. It's in line with the others. But like I said, once you're stacking so much weapon damage already, the return on investment comes a little low. Once the perfect killer procs, it actually becomes a lot less impactful than you'd think. The third option we have is the Česká with standard Obliterate. And this is where Česká gives us an additional 8% crit hit chance, which allows us to stack on another crit hit damage roll. The 4th and 5th piece were some fun options that I've actually tried and used a lot. And these are going to be not your highest damaging, obviously by the graphic, but they are fun to play and they're a little different. They're a little bit more survivable and they're definitely not bad versions. So the 4th version, as you can see, is with the Perfect Spotter with the closer chest, as well as we're going to be running the Technician with both of these. And I find that these are the most comfortable, I would say, solo versions. I don't actually think you miss that damage. So As you can see, Perfect Spotter is going to give us 20% amp damage to pulse targets. So we're running the Technician so that we can run the Link Laser Pointer, and then we're instantly getting that amp damage. It's still not what Perfect Obliterate gets us, but it is on demand with no ramp. And the hidden benefit, I guess, if you will, is one, if you're running the Perfect Spotter, that means that you're getting the 5% total armor from the brand set, but you're also getting an additional skill tier on your defender drone, on your shield, on your skills, obviously, right? And that can be pretty impactful and it can feel pretty good. So my honest summary is, if you want peak DPS, the UA with Perfect Obliterate. If you want the cleanest non-locked damage version, I would run the Česká with Obliterate. And if you want a more comfortable solo experience, I like Perfect Spotter with Technician. If you don't have that, the Česká Spotter is also a good option and is very valid. You just end up losing the survivability, but because, again, Česká allows you to get that extra crit hit damage roll, you don't actually lose out on a lot of damage there. I've played all 5 versions. All 5 of them work. It's just a matter of what you're trying to accomplish in the moment, right? So the gameplay you see, I'm trying to burn through the National Bond Armory as fast as possible. So that's why I'm going for the UA with Perfect Obliterate, right? Because I'm trying to put out as much damage as possible in a short amount of time. But for open world, specifically Retaliations, where it could be a little bit rougher, I actually preferred running the Technician variants because it was just nice to have better skills, better skill uptime, as well as more survivability. Now let's head to the range where we can take a look at the numbers and make sure we didn't miss anything and there are no surprises while we were theory crafting. So cold, no buffs, no memento stacks, no anything like that. The weapon card reads 92,764, and that number already has everything additive baked into it. So that's your SMG damage roll, that's your Hunter's Fury 2-piece, your Shade Watch, all that good stuff. So that's going to be our clean starting point. Now let's go ahead and ramp up. Full Obliterate stacks, Hunter's Fury close range amp, damage to targets out of cover actor. We're not going to do Perfect Killer yet, and let's just see what we get. We're expecting 347,096, and as you can see, boom, we're right on target, right? 347,096. Now, let's go ahead and proc Perfect Killer, 1 crit kill. We should be looking for 483,750, and as you can see, procced up and ramped in practice, we're getting 483,748. So that's a delta of 2 damage across, 5 separate brackets. So we're going to call that accurate. And what that also tells us is proccing Perfect Killer is giving us a 39.4% damage increase. That's super strong. And in heroic content, where you're chaining and crit killing pretty much constantly, that's essentially your permanent state. I don't think there's pretty much any point in time in which I was running heroic content where I wasn't sitting with my Perfect Killer proc. Now here we can also take a look at our crit profile. So here, obviously we're going 60% crit chance. It's super easy to get on the SMG. And then we have 128.6% static crit hit damage, which is going to bump up the moment Perfect Killer activates by 90%. So as I mentioned before, the gameplay is the National Bond Armory on heroic with 4 active directives. If you're not familiar, this is one of the more popular speed XP farm missions that I've seen. Got a fast layout, you can get through it pretty quickly. I have 4 directives active, increasing the difficulty as well as the XP gain, so we're essentially just playing with double XP. The 5th directive that I decided to leave out is actually ammo hoarders, and I'm leaving it off deliberately at 1,200 rounds per minute, right? Dumping through enemies this fast. Starting with low ammo sucks. It's tough, it makes it more inconvenient. Obviously you can get through it, but it just makes it a lot less convenient to run through. And I feel like we're already getting double XP, so I'd rather just be able to press through and hold the trigger to burn through the content a lot easier and more efficiently. One of the active directives is cool skills, which puts your other skill on cooldown whenever you use one. And this is another one where, honestly, it can be a nuisance, I guess. One of the other active directives is cool skills, which puts your other skill on cooldown whenever you use one. And you would think that this is a nuisance and a hindrance to the build because I'm running, in theory, 2 survivability skills, right? I'm using the shield skill as well as the defender drone. So it cuts our, if you will, added survivability in half. But because we're so strong, because we're killing things so fast, it actually doesn't matter and it's not that big of a deal here. But I say that to say, when you're running open world and when you're playing without the directives, it actually becomes a little bit easier. Now, another thing I actually want to mention is most builds running Memento don't translate super well into groups, I feel like, because you need to be the one getting the kills to get the trophy to drop, right? So the build becomes a lot less efficient when you're sharing the kills and you're not getting as many trophies as you would running solo. This build doesn't really have that problem because, again, we have 1260 rounds per minute. That chained kill loop that we have going, we're actually generating kills and trophies at a rate where I don't feel impacted in group play at all, and I actually still feel like I'm strong and I can get to max trophies most of the time. The RPM advantage means that even in a group setting, I'm consistently the one finishing targets, so Memento stays fully productive. Now for the honest part, at the end of the day, this is still an SMG build, and that comes with real limitations worth acknowledging. The Vector mag empties super fast, and especially in a longer engagement or where your kill chain stalls, this can feel pretty bad, leave you stuck out. And at long range, this build loses all of its identity, right? The Hunter's Fury close range amp drops off past 15 meters, and the Disorient chain becomes even harder to maintain. You're asking the Vector to do a job it wasn't designed for, and they're clearly a lot better builds for long sightline content. And that does end up tending to be what the majority of this game's content is kind of built around. I will reiterate though, that's why I do believe that this build does work well in groups where you can kind of split up the aggro a bit and you're not taking all that pressure playing at close range. For high tier escalations or any escalation specifically, this also isn't where I'd start. The close range dependency becomes a liability when the enemies hit so hard and the room is a lot more chaotic. It's not really a build that can function here cleanly. It can, like I said, in a group, but there are definitely more forgiving options. Where this build thrives is exactly where it was designed to thrive. Heroic missions, retaliation runs, close quarters content where the kill chain can run freely and the momentum never has to stop. Know what you're building, know where it performs, and play to its strengths. So here's the full setup. Mask, gloves, holster, and knee pads are going to be all Hunter's Fury, all red cores. The backpack, like we said, we're running the Memento. And the chest is your choice. The unit alloys with Perfect Obliterate, Česká Obliterate, as well as the spotter variants. All are fine, all work. It's just a matter of which you feel like doing in that moment. The primary, of course, is the Dark Winter, and we have damage to targets out of cover in the third slot. The secondary, I'm running the Pestilence. It gives us a ranged option for opening engagements and getting the ball rolling before we get the close range chain fully established. For the spec, the Firewall for aggressive shield is which I'm running in the footage, Gunner if you want a more comfortable pick, and then of course Technician if you're going to be running the spotter variant. For skills, I'm pretty much always running a shield. Obviously if I have the Firewall, I'll run that shield, and the Defender drone. I think that the damage mitigation helps the survivability and helps us get less punished because we're playing at close range. Now to wrap up before we close out, we established our Dark Winter build running Hunter's Fury to get some build identity here. Of course, we could have run Striker and gotten better sustained ramp damage, but although I glossed over the Hunter set bonuses because it's a set that's been around for a long time and I didn't want to be super repetitive, remember that the Hunter set does have sustain tools built into it, as well as its own secondary damage stacking mechanic. Also remember that this is a momentum build, and it feels weakest before the first kill and strongest when you're collapsing the room around you. With this build, you become the Hunter. If this video helped you in any way, do me a favor, like, subscribe, and leave me a comment. It goes a long way in helping me bring you more of the stuff that actually matters, because remember, when you're built different, you hit different.